9th, and we are here at the Administrative Committee meeting. I'm joined by Councilor Terusio and Councilor Kelly and our City Supervisor, Gary Riedner. Our first item on the agenda today is approval of the July 26th Administrative Committee minutes.
Looked fine to me.
Me too. Let's approve them.
All right, minutes are approved. Next item on our agenda is the renewal of the Intermodal Transit Center lease with Smart Transit, and Gary Riedner.
Thank you very much. What you have before you is a renewal of the ITC, the Intermodal Transit Center lease with Smart Transit. We're about almost 10 months late in renewing it. This is the third renewal of the lease. We bill every month for the lease itself, and Smart Transit, we invoice them, they send us their payment, so on and so forth. Just as an oversight on both of our parts, the current lease expired as of September 30th of 2020. We continued it on a month-to-month, and so it's back before you. No big changes in it. There were some insurance issues that we worked out with Smart, and their board looked at it, and Gina, who's also the president of Smart, was in with Ben Amon, the executive director, today, and signed it in the office. So if it's approved to go through council today, we will bring you an executed lease from Smart at council next week.
Any questions? How long is will the lease?
5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Nope, didn't have any.
Concerns? Okay.
Nope.
So, sounds like we're recommending approval of the lease agreement.
So we'll put that on the consent agenda then?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
please. Okay, moving on to item number 3 is the open container ordinance revisions for downtown events. And we
Okay,
have
if I could have
Gary
Mia join us. Just as far as background, this was something that we put together at Mayor Lambert's request. It was, over the last several years, we've had activities downtown, and council may remember in 2019, implemented a beer garden process where if there was an activity and a beer garden was requested, we could move forward with that mostly on a staff administrative level. However, it was, especially Art Walk and some of the bigger events, it was discussed whether or not we could put an entertainment district in place, which essentially would allow a process by which, even though beer and wine would be vended in accordance with the city and the state alcohol code, that one could move around in the entertainment district area, whatever that is designated to be. So could have an open container, if you will, which is why this comes to you as an exemption to the open container ordinance. So it is something that we patterned it off the process that we utilize for East City Park. So like with Rendezvous, which is the most recent example, if someone wants to have a beer garden in East City Park, they would come to council. Council would then specifically, staff would do all the vetting process, bring it to council with a recommendation and a specific resolution for that particular activity. So it's not something that's a use of right or anything like that. It's up to council's discretion within the parameters in the ordinance. So with that, I know Mayor Lambert would like to talk a little bit about his thoughts behind it. Mia and her staff have done a great job of going through, and we brought the city clerk into the conversation as well to make sure that we honor the alcohol regulations and we're still provide as much flexibility as possible while ensuring that balance of being able to utilize areas within these particular districts that are contained in the exhibit to the ordinance, so they're a particular map, and also that we balance that against the public's right to use the public right-of-way for transportation. Right. So with that.
Thank you, and am I excited about this? Absolutely, because I've been thinking about this for 8 years. Not necessarily this specific thing, because these guys are the brains that make sure that it's rolled up right, me and as well as Gary, but an entertainment district in our town is a must thing that we need to have to not only showcase the University of Idaho, but all kinds of other venues downtown. The nice thing about a resolution like this is the council will get a chance to make decisions because it'll be based on opportunity after opportunity. In other words, it won't be just a blanketed rule. People will have to come and ask just like anybody, and the council will make the decision based on a resolution, which is absolutely the correct way of doing it. But anyway, this is something I've been excited about. I know that there have been those, some of them sitting up here at this table, that were in Boise a number of different times that had this very thing, and I said, why can't we do this? If they can do that, we can do this. And so they finally got it put together, and it's coming in front of us. So I'm just very excited about it because I think it's something that our town can really use. And like I said, it'll showcase everything, businesses, universities, so on and so forth, and how we can work together in a collaborative fashion like we always do. And with that, I will turn it. I know there's others who would like to speak too, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
By way of background, if I may, you'll notice the map that you have in your packet has just essentially the central business core, as well as extending up to where there are several breweries along Jackson Street and down the 6th Street corridor to Deacon. So it would be able, those are typically our entertainment venues. And if you go outside of those areas, typically places have parking lots. If you go to the motor business zone, if someone wants to have some sort of a beer garden or something going on in their parking lot, then they can designate that as being closed to the public and do their own thing. So they don't need city permission to do that. So that's what this is meant to do.
Okay. Let's see.
Mia may have additional perspective she wants to add.
Yeah, when we were working on this, looking at it from the perspective of, what are the roadblocks, understanding what the vision was, what are the roadblocks, and the biggest roadblock, it was the open container prohibition. And so the way that this would work, all the businesses that would be selling the beer and or wine are still required to follow their licenses, their regulations, their alcohol licenses, and only sell the beer or wine in the area that they're permitted to sell it. And so that doesn't change. This ordinance revision doesn't change those requirements. What it does is it just allows the people who are purchasing the beer or wine to walk freely within the approved area that we're calling the entertainment district. And so that's what that does.
I do have a question on that. I am excited about this. I'm just looking at potential loopholes. So, let's say it's a visitor that comes to town, and they're not of drinking age, but they have their own alcohol, and they try to make it look like they got it from a local vendor, and they go through. How do we, not you, Mia? Yes.
I can answer that.
Thanks.
We've talked about some of the logistics that would happen here. For instance, if you take the area from 3rd Street to 6th Street, you have 5 separate entrances and exits, ingress and egress at the 4th Street, 3rd and Main, 6th and Main, and 5th Street intersections. So those would have to be restricted access. As you come in, the public would be allowed to come in. However, if you wanted to drink, there would likely be some of those bans or something to make sure that vendors know. And vendors, of course, are not relieved of their responsibility to make sure that someone is of age before they sell that. As you recall with the resolution that we use in East City Park, when you look at it every year for Rendezvous, it has parameters in it, but it also says what kind of security are you going to provide. If you don't have security that is approved by the chief of police and city council, then you need to hire 2 off-duty police officers to come and do that, or I guess it would be on-duty police officers, but would reimburse the city for the time. In these situations, you're talking about a fairly large area, footprint, depending on what piece is authorized for each activity. So we would have to look at those circumstances. So there'd be issues of frequency. Again, Main Street right-of-way is a transportation corridor first and foremost. So having something every night or every weekend, all of those things are things council would want to consider. You might want to get some feedback from the downtown business community as it might impact their businesses, and they may have an opinion on that. You're going to want to look at how big is the activity, how many officers or security people are going to be required by the council. And then there's a matter of how many vendors. Do you allow everyone to vend and they each have to get authority to do so? Or do you just have one vendor do it? So all of these logistics need to be looked at.
I do have a question. So and I think you answered it in pieces. This entire map is not the entertainment district for each event.
It is where an event could be allowed,
Beautiful.
but
Or
it isn't the whole thing.
of.
Yes.
Perfect. That's what I
Precisely.
needed to know.
And so I assume that these events, these would only be events where there's street closure.
Yes, that was one of the issues, because if you look at going from D Street all the way down to the South Couplet, essentially, what you're looking at is you're crossing 2 state highway intersections, and we cannot change open container on the state highways. That's their right of way. So, and having people with open containers next to moving traffic is probably not the safest thing to do. So we would want to not have traffic coinciding with people walking around with alcohol.
And then there, of course, would always be the permitting process as there is now. This would just be an additional option that you could apply for in that process.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? I think we have maybe some people who came to speak to this. Is there anyone who wanted to? Yes,
See my name and all that?
correct.
Hello, my name is George Scandalous. I am one of the owners of Myelina Pizzeria Napolitana, and I'm also here as a board member of the Moscow Downtown Business Association. And I wanted to speak in support of this, and also just to kind of ask some questions, because we're looking at starting an Oktoberfest celebration, which we wanted to open up to the public at large. We want to do food vendors and kind of a street fair atmosphere, and we're planning on doing this. Right now, the tentative date for us is October 2nd, and going forward, we'd like to pick one of the last 2 weekends in September or the first weekend in October, depending on if there's a football game in town. So we're trying to schedule us to not have football games in town. And actually, the way we're going to do this a little bit differently is that all the downtown, the DBA members are invited to come and set up booths, and would be the food vendors, the beer vendors, the wine vendors, the coffee vendors, et cetera. So we want to do a Oktoberfest celebration. And in order to do this right now, we're looking at the tentative footprint would be from 3rd to 5th. But we want to be able to set up booths just like the farmer's market, except that we'll probably do, we're looking at working with the School of Art and Architecture, as well as the theater department, to do set design, because we want all our booths to actually have a facade that would be like a Bavarian village, to make it more entertaining for families to be able to come down for this, and also hiring a German band to come and play.
Cool. Well, I think at this stage, once you have a date settled on, you should probably, regardless of where this particular ordinance is, you could probably start that process of applying. with,
Yeah, we're
yeah.
planning on applying. I think Sam Martinette's gonna apply, but we wanted to see how this is gonna shake out, because obviously our plans would change if we have to fence it off. But again, I think that you have more community buy-in for events that everybody can attend. And so, our idea is that, like, say parents wanted to come down, and the dad's a wine drinker and the mom's a beer drinker, and they have a stroller, they can come downtown, get a couple of, kielbasa's or German sausages or bratwurst or whatever, and one can have a beer, one can have a kombucha, whatever, and just be able to kind of stroll around downtown and go to the bouncy castles and, get pictures in the cardboard cutouts of the Bavarian images, those kinds of things. So it's something that we've all been working on at the DBA.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wanted to speak? Okay. How are we feeling?
I think it's great.
That was short and sweet, Sandra. Well, Yeah, I can't get any more brief than that. Yeah, ditto. There you go. I win.
All right, well, I also am excited to think about all the various types of things that could happen and how it would really embellish some of our existing events like Art Walk. So I hear us all recommending adoption of the ordinance. So probably regular agenda.
Yeah.
So it would need to be, we will try to put at least a punch list of things, logistical things that need to be worked out as well, because just from the short presentation today, there are logistically a lot of things that need to be resolved before the council can have a usable resolution. So we'll try to have that ready by Monday.
Appreciate your work on
You know,
this.
one thing I was thinking about too, just to keep on the radar, maybe you already know this, but, you know, if additional police are needed, do the vendors pay for that? Right, they just have to come up with the amount to,
If it is a private event, then that would be paid for by,
Okay.
just as the East City Park.
Yep.
If it is a city-sponsored event, such as Art Walk or something like that, then the city would be responsible to do it.
I think it would also be interesting to see, depending on the event. I mean, it might be, you may not have all the beer gardens like we're used to seeing on the street if businesses can be accessed and with their licenses sell beer and wine, and then the people can come back out to the Main Street events. So it might look different.
Which
than
is
what we've
also
been-
one of the issues is you have businesses that sell beer and wine in their businesses
Yeah.
who also have entrances out their back door. So, I mean, it's going to take coordination of everybody doing business in the downtown core. So again, that is one of the things. If you go to the Alive After 5 event that they have, I think it's called Live After 5 down in Boise. It is in their convention center, and they have entrances, ingress and egress, but everybody is essentially locked into that square, if you will, or that courtyard. So this wouldn't quite be the same thing, so it's a little more logistically challenging.
but great to not be in beer jail. I love that. It's not really a garden, it's like beer jail. So I think this is awesome.
So I did have a question, and it was, George triggered it when he was up here. As far as, he mentioned fencing it off. What if the event isn't big enough to take the entire corridor? How do you control that? Or can they wander the entire thing with their drink, because we've made that an entertainment
We have
district?
street barricades that we would
Right,
utilize. Same
right.
thing that we've let people use for the traditional beer gardens. Whatever the licensed area is, meaning that portion of the entertainment district, which is laid out within, did I say something wrong?
No, I was just gonna I think you got it.
Anyway,
Just
Moral
support, moral support,
Okay.
we get
Yeah.
it, we get it.
so anyway, it's just, so the resolution would lay out where it's going to be.
So there is a fencing off part of this then?
With any downtown events, the city does the traffic control. So we don't have private traffic control for downtown events. And so when an applicant puts in an application, if that is approved, and in this case, it would be an application that comes through the council, then our streets department would implement a compliant traffic control plan that we have a group that's been working on the implementation piece. Like with any ordinance, there's the ordinance, but then there's the how do we implement the will of the council. And so we've got a group together that includes people from our community events, police, fire, my staff, working through the logistics. So we've got a draft application that includes this, starting to work through a lot of the logistical things that Gary's mentioned. You know, how do you deal with the state highways and those sorts of things? And we've made pretty good progress on the logistical piece of that. And so all of those considerations will be included in any application that comes forward. And so
Awesome.
security, location, signs, wording, all that kind of
Okay.
stuff.
I do, judging from your statement earlier about people with alcohol and state highways, I do hope we fence that scenario out of danger. I don't like that idea much, but, okay, awesome, thank you.
Thanks,
You
Tyler.
know, to further answer that question, so when you pass the resolution, a part of that resolution will have the map of the approved area. So just because the entertainment district spans a large area, what you actually approve and what will be exempted from the open container ordinance for that approved event is whatever is on that attached map, which
Good.
law enforcement
Okay.
would have.
Yeah, I do appreciate that.
And the reason we do that, because outside of that authorized area, it is still a crime to have an open container.
Right, yep.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Great.
All right.
Okay, so I think that was our last agenda item.
Yeah.
I can jump back up there, but if I'm correct, I will.
I move
You are
we adjourn.
correct.
All right, any reports? We're good.
No reports.
Okay. All right, we're adjourned.
Great.
Thank you.
So, hey, looking at the map, like with the,